another AFL edition of our fantasy sports breakdown here at FSI. If you are new to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below, give this video a like, shoot us a comment. Any of those things help get our videos out there and our free content that we are putting out for you guys. We have esports content, we have soccer, NASCAR, golf. We're going to continue to grow that content as well as more sports become available. So let's hop in. For me, the first weekend of AFL was definitely, in the United States here was a learning process for me. Just being able to watch the games and be able to understand where the value comes in for players, differentiating the positions, kind of what stats correlate really well together too. And do know that, most of these players, even if they're not listed in the lineups, if they are considered in the IC role, which is an interchangeable role, that they are still going to be playing. It's not like you need to fade those guys completely. They're just starting the game on the bench, but then they have up to, like 80 or 90 rotations during that game. So that way they're going to still sub in. So most of the players are going to have a 75 to, 90% time on ground, which would be similar to like the minutes on the pitch for soccer or any other quantity of time being played in any other sporting event. So that would be, and that's not something that is showing up here on like the DK game logs. You're not going to see time on ground. It might be something that it would be nice to see in the future, just a percentage. So do keep in mind so we will be talking about play, and we don't have confirmed lineups yet. And there's actually a couple guys that are listed out right now that may actually play, just based on some other news that we've gotten over the last 24 hours. So, and make sure to just kind of keep updated on the AFL site to make sure that you have the correct players in there. And DK has done a good job at marking those on here. As we go through today, we have some projections from one of our content providers, Mega Ruler, that we'll be using to kind of talk through, but also these rankings at DailyFantasyRankings.com.au. They put out phenomenal AFL rankings and projections, kind of gives their scores from even in the previous years. So you can see the rounds, so round 21, 22, 23 is from last year. Round 1, round 2 is from this year. And they have graciously allowed me to refer to their rankings as we provide content through here. So I would, highly suggest checking them out when you are maybe making a decision between a couple players because you want to look at your projections. You can compare them to the projections that we will have as well on our site. And right now our projections are really going to be based on the stats from 2020, and then continue to add in, how the matchup affects the projections and things like that. So let's get started. Let's start with the odds first. And actually we get to see Richmond here again, which Richmond was on the first Showdown slate that we had for Draftkings, and they played Collingwood. It was a 36-36 tie. It was like the first time these teams had tied in over 100 years or something like that. So it was kind of like I got to watch my first game live, in the morning, and the over-under was 130, and it ended 36-36. So that was definitely like a defensive game, and you did see the defenders do really well. And part of the reason, if you're trying to understand a little bit from AFL, in those low-scoring games, when an offensive player attempts to go for goal, or they kick it, or they handball it deep, and it's not caught by an offensive player, there's a lot of times that it is caught by a defensive player. So if that defensive player catches it, that is considered a mark. So that is 3 points. Then after that, they are going to either kick it or handball it. So immediately, those stats correlate really well. And you really actually like a lot of time, depending on the team they're playing, but the guys that are wide, the wide defenders, sometimes get more of those free balls flying at them, where the central defenders might not see as many live balls coming right at them for a chance for a mark, because people are going for goal from that angle rather than from the outside where they might be, another handball. and then another thing to learn is, you know, if an offensive player kicks it or handballs it into the 50-yard box and somebody marks it and catches it in the air, then that's when they have that opportunity to, you know, take that kick for goal. Also a free kick, similar to something like soccer, but a free kick for AFL inside that 50-yard box, again, is just going to give them a free attempt at the goal. I did see a pretty crazy, and we'll talk about him in a second here. Jack Higgins, it was his first game back since brain surgery. So he actually caught the ball right on the end line. So they did a replay similar to like the NFL where they go to the replay booth, and it was right next to the goal, but he was still further off to the right side, so he wasn't underneath it. And the ball actually touched his hands before he went out of bounds, but his feet didn't have to be in bounds, so it was still considered a mark where the ball hit his hands. So imagine yourself being behind a basketball hoop, and you know you're trying to like make that cool shot right over the hoop, and then it goes in. Well, he had to kind of kick it, you know, from that really awkward angle, and he scored a goal. So that was really cool to see. Just another one of those nuances of the sport. So just learning the game and then applying it to the DFS is kind of my goal here. So Richmond is favored a -280, favored a -16.5 favorite here. That's what the spread is. So you're looking at, you know, 2.5 goals. So it's pretty significant. 135 over under. I do expect, just the way that I saw the last game play, both these two teams are lower in terms of fantasy points per game. So just not as like fast paced teams. So we won't really be seeing necessarily a shootout. But I do think that doesn't really matter as much when you're just in a one game situation. I think you really figure those types of things in when you are deciding which game to target, which right here we obviously only have one game to target. So let's start out with our rucks. So in the ruck role, we have two guys that are going to be basically soloing the ruck role, meaning they will take a majority of the jump balls or the hit out opportunities. Ivan Soldo at 6.2K is the most expensive here. And if we bring up his game log here quick, in week one, that was obviously pre-COVID, so I'm really focusing in here. Against Collingwood, he had 23 hitouts, but he was really active. He had 9 tackles, didn't get upfield as much and do a lot of other things, but he was really aggressive with the tackles, that's what really brought that price up and made him a much better play than Grundy, actually, for the price difference on that slate. Seglar is going to provide a little different value. He's still going to have the hitouts, but he is known to get a lot more forward. So you're going to see more handballs from him, potentially some more marks, potentially some more kicks. You know, there's always that outside goal chance. I would never really count, try to figure in any goals for the rucks, but I do think that Seglar might just provide a little bit more upside from a positional standpoint, but I think Soldo being on the favorite team here, I think they would probably expect him to win more of those jump balls than Seglar. But I think, it's viable to play either one. I think Nakervis is still going to be ruled out, but I think McAvoy might be in, but he is not likely playing in that role of a ruck. So, and you can see even in the last game where they got beat up pretty bad, he had one hit out. So again, I'm not really considering him a ruck here. And that might've been just the one time that Seglar was off the pitch while he was on. But he wasn't really all that impressive other than that. So he's kind of a fade for me, because you don't really want to waste a position that has a really high floor with Seglar and Soldo on somebody that doesn't. It's not that much of a savings. When we were talking Darcy Cameron in that first slate, he did meet value, he did take some enough of the hitouts, but he was playing really pushing forward and was just cheap enough to take that risk. So pick one of the top two. I think Seglar. I think Soldo is probably safer. Seglar might just have a little bit more upside playing further up the pitch. And then if we look at our rankings here from Daily Fantasy Rankings, when I look at the two rucks, Soldo is projecting at 71 points and Seglar at 69. So they are pretty close And you can see here their fantasy output from their last game was 74 and 74. So that's kind of what we had already looked at. So let's move on to the defensive role here. Hooley in the first matchup against Collingwood, again, a low scoring game, benefited a ton from getting these 8 marks. And another thing that you can think about, and I kind of compare this to center backs in soccer, like these guys sometimes are just passing to each other back and forth. So because they're like moving up the pitch, they're like hit the ball, and then the other one catches it. Well, that's a mark and a handball. Okay, then the other one does it back to each other. So just that combination of passing back and forth can definitely accrue a lot of these statistics really quickly. So he would be my top defender on the slate. He does project in our projections as one of the top plays as well. I do think his projections might be a little bit skewed because he didn't play in the first matchup, so his 2020 projection was already 100 just based on what he did. And we are working on adjusting ours, but I mean it is similar to here where they have him projected at 85, and these projections are lower than what you would see from last year. So don't get too discouraged when you see these rounds from last year, because remember those were 20-minute quarters, and due to COVID-19, they have since round one. Round one still at 20-minute quarters. Now everything is at 16-minute quarters. So don't try to compare and look for that same exact score, because it's just not going to happen when you take out 16 minutes essentially out of a game. So Hooley is the number 1 defender here at 6.8K. Edwards hasn't played that well yet this season, but he was one of their best defenders last year. Liam Baker has just recently been ruled out for personal reasons. He's heading back to wherever his family is from. So I do think that potentially leaves some openings for some other players. But the one guy I do want to mention here is Atsbury. He's one of my favorite point per dollar players on the slate for value. Hughes has been super active in this last game, 13 kicks. Even at 49 points for 3.7K, what he scored in that first matchup he had pre-COVID, that was still a great score and a great line for his price. But if we look at if I look back to our rankings here at Daily Fantasy Rankings and I just sort through value, he does project as the top value on the slate as well. He's projecting for, potentially 54 points. And that's the top value. And even if I go to mark projections as well, and I sort through value here, he is going to also be at the top of our board at a 12.6 value rating. So he is one of my favorite point per dollar players on the slate. So you could easily pair him with somebody like Hooley, Grimes as well. I think he played a little bit more of a forward role. I do like him as a value as well for Richmond. And we will have to kind of keep on the news to see which player is going to be taking that role for Liam Baker. There's talk that it could be Smith here. So we just have to kind of look back to see. I think Jack Short, Jayden Short is also a really good value. Has been really consistent with putting up those peripheral stats right here. 62 points, 50, at 5.2K, again on the favored team. I really like that there. So that's kind of where I'm at with the defender. Obviously, like I said, Atsbury is my favorite value on the slate. And that's somebody that I'll probably be targeting for sure in cash games. So let's go over to the midfield. Now, when you think about midfielders and you see some of them with the designation of the mid and the forward, I think in cash, I tend to like to get some of the guys that are listed here in the MF. If I do think that they are providing enough floor stats, like the handball and the kicks, and they're just getting a lot of center touches, then in cash, I do like using them in the forward position. Obviously, goals can rack up points quick, but similar to soccer, unless it's a massive favorite or something like that, or the goal scorer is just elite, it does always tend to lean towards those guys who have higher floors in cash games. So Mitchell has been a little bit disappointing for his price tag. 9K is really a big price tag to swallow as a pretty big underdog here on this slate. I much prefer Priesta, again, who's providing just a lot of those peripheral stats here and will have some goal upside just because he is playing pretty active midfield role. Martin, we know, is one of their goal scorers and will play up forward, has played really well. I do think his role might change and he might get moved around a little bit with O'Meara potentially not coming back. Sorry, no, that won't affect. That's for Hawthorn, wrong team. Okay. O'Meara is likely going to affect Liam Shields a little bit more than that would, but Dustin Martin is viable. Again, they're favored here. I like Priesta and Martin. Wingard played really well in that first week with 3 goals. So and again, this is kind of looking at that mid and forward tag. I mean, obviously he definitely is getting forward here with the 3 goals. So gives you a little bit more, gives you this floor here, but then also gives you some of that upside. And that's where you saw the 100 points in that first matchup. I like Warple a lot for the peripheral stats and even adding in the tackles. So not only is he playing on a lot of center bounces and a lot of exchanges in the midfield, but he also is doing a lot of tackling, which I think it's 4 points of tackle. So that can really add up pretty quick. O'Meara, it was out in week 2, but obviously played really well in week 1, really well, like 11 kicks, 12 handballs. He just was kind of all over the place. So I think he, as long as there's no restrictions on his time on the ground, which I don't expect there will be, then I think he's certainly in play at 7,700. I'm kind of off Liam Shields, even though he played really well in week 1. Week 2 was a little bit, obviously didn't have a really good game, but if O'Meara comes back, I think that can definitely affect his production. Mr. Kachin, if I might have pronounced that wrong, I really like him at 6.3K. Put up a lot of really nice peripheral stats here in the middle. And I think he's one of the older players on the team, I think. And so maybe that little break benefited him. Henderson here. I'm not going to go through. This is Ricky Henderson. I'll probably fade him there. Josh Caddy, since Liam Baker has been ruled out, it looks like that there is, and you can even see down here in the updated notes that he did raise his hand as he wanted to play in this next matchup. It does seem like it is interesting that these players kind of are like raising, like volunteering to play more than maybe the coaches are making that decision. But Josh Caddy would be a phenomenal value if he's in the game. He played really well week 1. I think he just had a calf issue that was kind of sore, so he didn't play week 2. But he would be a great play on a favorite here for Richmond. So I really like him coming back for week 2. And if we kind of move down here, I don't think we might get Jack Ross in potentially. He's listed as a potential replacement for Liam Baker or just on the roster as a fill-in. Pickett was a nice value in that first week. We thought he was going to kind of play the backup ruck role and get some hitouts, but he did not. So I think, 5.1K is a little bit too expensive for my liking there. Then I think Tom Scully, I did like as well, graded out pretty nicely for his price in terms of peripheral stats. So I think that's another potential value in the midfield. I do think that you want to be careful when you're using value in the midfield, just because, there can be value certainly, but I would rather take some potential value that might need to score a goal or something at the forward position. But we'll kind of get to that here. So in the forward position, we already talked about Martin and Wingard. Lambert has been okay. I think maybe a little bit overpriced. But same with Tom Lynch. Tom Lynch, people will definitely probably go back to because he had 3 goals last game, but really goal dependent and plays pretty forward. So, if he's got to make sure he's got to catch those deep balls in order to have opportunities for goals. I do really like Shea Bolton. He's one of my favorite plays of the slate. Just a machine all over the place, making tackles, being aggressive, going for goal. This is just a guy when you actually watch a game, you'll notice him because he is just on the defense, on the offense, is just all around, all over the place. Like I said before, if Josh Caddy's in, I think he's going to be a great forward play along with Shea Bolton. So if both of those are in, I can definitely see myself playing both of those, and then just paying up at the midfield. Jack Higgins too. That was the player that I talked about who had that kind of wraparound goal in week 2 off of the mark next to the goal. Played really, really well in that first matchup that he came back off of his brain surgery, and provide some nice value there as well. Jack Rywalt didn't play very well, which is unfortunate because he had a really easy opportunity at a goal that he just like left super short for some reason. That was kind of tilting for me on my own play. Rioli, I think people will be off of him after the poor performance last week, but his price did increase quite a bit, and I think his obviously you can tell his production from that first week pre-COVID was mainly based on goals. So 3 goals, again, tough to really predict those goals, but that's kind of where I'm at. Luke Briust, again, a little bit more goal dependent. Drew a lot of free kicks, which I think obviously gave opportunities for those goals. But I do think he's definitely viable at 5.1K as well. So I'm just going to hop over to our rankings here quick, just to look at some of our other projected values. Jack Higgins projecting as the second highest value here from Daily Fantasy Rankings. Broad as a defender. A lot of times in these values too, you're going to find the defenders will be the cheap defenders because it's easy to pay off those really cheap price tags, but that might not be in a showdown format where you're going to get the highest raw projections. So as you see here, Atsbury is still listing as one of the top values. Shea Bolton, who I really liked, is also projecting as a really nice value. Scully, Short, and Grimes, who I also mentioned, Seglar and Soldo. And then if let's just look more back towards just our top projected plays for them. And then I'm going to kind of compare it to what ours is. And then hopefully that these 2 resources, and I will have our projections posted on our website along with this video. So you can kind of refer to both. And then also we'll have the link to this cheat sheet from Daily Fantasy Rankings in the YouTube video below. And we'll also link that in our website. Really awesome for them to allow us to use this and kind of partner up with them on continuing to put out content for AFL. So just our top projected play here is Tom Mitchell. Again, I just don't think that it's worth the 9K price tag. I really I like Priesta more. I think his floor is better and he does have upside. Warple coming as a pretty nice value. Otherwise, you're going to go down and you're going to kind of see some of the guys that we've already mentioned. So I think it's going to kind of come down to, choosing the 3 or 4 guys you're paying up for here. And if you decide to pay up for Hooley, that will be a little bit more price restrictive. But we don't have that really super expensive ruck that really makes you have to decide if you're going to fade, say Priesta for Grundy or Dustin Martin for Grundy. So I think in those cases where you have to make that decision, it makes the lineups a little bit tougher to build. But I think we have a lot of value here to use some of the top plays and the top midfielders on the slate. So give us a subscribe below. Check out our content. We'll continue to try to get AFL content out as much as possible. It just kind of comes down to having, the projections and things ready. And but we'd love to grow the game here in the US and within our FSI DFS community. So hit that subscribe button, give us a like, give us a comment. Let's push this video out. Thank you again to dailyfantasyrankings.com.au. Head over there to check out their content for AFL and this awesome cheat sheet. And then go over to our site and check out our projections along with this YouTube video. And then you can get in our Discord channel. It's totally free to enter the AFL Discord channel. And I will have core plays posted for every slate that they offer this for round 3. So thanks for listening. Hope to see you in our Discord channel. Hope to see you subscribe to the channel. Thanks.